Hi! It's Levels Plus Whenever time on this special holiday edition of episode 87. I want to talk about my top 111 list. So I've got something special set up for it, which we'll talk about that in a moment. I do have some pickups real quick, so let's do those before we get into the list. Also got a redone holiday backdrop with lights and everything. I've shoved practically everything I have behind me, toy-wise. So there's a lot going on back there, but I'll show you some pictures. So I got King of Fighters 13 Global Match in the mail. I dabbled with it briefly. Seems solid enough. Although I guess there might be a couple particular things related to the Switch version, which isn't too big of a surprise. That'll get patched in the future, I'm sure. It also came, and this is a first that I'm aware of, a digital art and soundtrack file on my Switch. When I ordered it, I thought it would be something that would be like a code for like something online on my computer, but no, I've got a digital art book on my Switch. It's very Steam-like, I suppose. I also got Big Man, his amiibo in the mail. He's big, which is appropriate. He's Big Man after all. He's very thin, which is kind of neat. So I'm happy to have him. Alright, well, here's the whole 110 list. I can't quite do 111. Sorry, Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction. But I got 110 on this list. It's as of November of this year, so it's got RE2 and RE4 Remake, which are the most recent additions. What we're going to do is we're going to take this 110 list, and we're going to shrink it to 50. And then we're going to shrink it to 30, and then we're going to shrink it to 10. So this is going to be kind of agonizing as the deeper we go. I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up, because the way this software works at Topsters.org, which thank you to them for making this really cool list format, is that it will shrink from the bottom and the right as I eliminate rows and columns. So we will eventually get to that top 10, but we're going to work our way up from the bottom. And I'm going to keep my comments short as best I can. And I think I'll get more elaborate when we get into the top 30, top 10. But I want to kind of get through the top 50 pretty quickly. And I got pretty good ideas of what games I would not include in that. So, starting at the bottom, I think Xenoblade has potential. XCOM 2 has potential. Enemy Within has potential. Wave Race 64 does not. So I'm going to go ahead and eliminate Wave Race. Untitled Goose Game has potential. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I think I like MVC 2 a little bit more. So I'm going to say no. Transaruby for a top 50, possibly. Trials of Mana, I don't think so. Tomb Raider, probably not. Time Spinner, yeah, I would say that has potential. Thunder Force 4, probably not. Shredder's Revenge, no. Tales of Symphonia, no. Smash, yes. Mario Wonder, top 50, I don't think so. Mario 3 is a possibility. Mario Odyssey, possibility. Mario 64 is a possibility. Super Metroid, yes. Suikoden 2, yes. Suikoden 1, I'm going to go ahead and just drop that out now. Strider 2014, probably not. Alpha 3, yes. Street Fighter 6, yes. Streets of Rage 4, I think has potential. SteamWorld Heist, absolutely. Dig 2, not so much. Splatoon 3, yes. Spiritfarer, yes. Soul Calibur, no. Sonic Mania, no. Sonic CD, no. Skies, yes. Sin and Punishment, I don't think so. 3, Silent Hill 3, yes. 2, probably not. I do like 3 a little bit more. Shovel Knight, Shovel of Hope, or whatever it is. Yeah, that has potential. Short Hike, I would argue, yeah. Sayonara Wild Hearts, probably not. River City Girls 2 in a top 50? Possibly. RE4 Remake, yes. RE2 Remake. Yeah. Project Justice, no. Portal 2, no. Portal 1, yes. Spirit of Justice? I don't think so. Perfect Dark does. Okami, no. Vulgar Battle 64, no. Ninja Saviors, yes. Night Slashers, no. Mule, not at this stage. Zero Mission, no. Prime, yeah. Dread, yeah. Metal Slug X, no. Mega Man X, no. Mega Man 3, yes. Mega Man 2, no. Mars vs. Capcom 2, probably not. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, yes. Ocarina of Time, no. Link Between Worlds, no. Breath of the Wild. In contrast to Tears of the Kingdom, I like Breath a little bit less, but it had a huge impact on me, so I'm going to leave it and we'll figure that out. Zelda NES, yes. Legend of Valkyrie, I don't think so. Last Story, potentially. Last Blade 2, no. Kirby's Adventure, no. King of Fighters 11, no. It'll Do 2, probably not. International Superstar Soccer, yeah. Hotel Dusk, yes. Grease, yes. Golden Axe, no. Ghost Trick, yes. Gauro, yes. Freedom Planet, probably not. Three Hopes. That's a tough one. I'm going to leave it for now and see where we're at. Three Houses, yes. Echoes, yes. Original Fire Emblem, probably not. Elevator Action, yes. Earthbound, yes. Dragon's Dogma, no. Dragon Quest 9, probably not. 8, yes. 5, I would argue, is a possibility. 4 is a no. Days Ex, I'll keep on here until we thin it out. Dead Space 2, yes. Dead Space 1, probably not. Contra, yes. Chrono Trigger, yes. Celeste, yes. Cave Story, probably not. The 4 Castlevanias, I think, have a pretty good chance. Bloodstained, probably not. Blaster Master Zero, probably not. Glay Lancer, probably not. Let's see where we're at. We are now at 64. So that was a good first round, but there is still 14 I need to eliminate to get to 50. So now we're going to start getting into the hard stuff. So Animal Crossing, I think that's the easiest one for me to toss out. I'm going to go ahead and toss Mario Odyssey out. I'm going to toss Transaruby out. I'm going to toss River City Girls 2 out. So we're now at 60. I'm going to toss Original Castlevania out. Days Ex. I think Three Hopes. RE2 Remake. XCOM Enemy Within. So I think, if my math's right, we have 5 more to take out. Short Hike. Contra. Boy and His Blob. Apollo Justice. And I think Alliance Alive. Okay, so let me count, make sure I got to 50. And I feel pretty good about this. You know, there was a few things that I shook up. In contrast to the last time I remember having a top 50. Dragon Quest V was not on there. Perfect Dark, I don't think, was on there. RE4 Remake definitely was not. Silent Hill 3 was not on there. Streets of Rage 4 was not. But I think otherwise this is pretty close to what it was, just with a few changes and a few additions. So now we start getting into the rough. the rough part of cutting it down to 30. I think what I'm going to do, since we're now here, is I'm going to talk about the ones that I know are going to stay. So, Beyond Good and Evil, that's been a top 5 game for me. Bionic Commando's been a top 10, 15. CBS 2 is arguably my favorite fighting game, period. Aria of Sorrow is a top 10. Rondo of Blood is my favorite traditional Castlevania game. It has been in the top 30 before. Simply the Night's a top 20 game for me. Celeste is probably top 20, 30. Chrono Trigger's top 5. Dead Space 2's been a top 15, 20 in the past. Dragon Quest V is one that I think I'm going to go ahead and cut now. I don't think it's a top 30. Dragon Quest VIII has been a top 20. Earthbound's been a top 20. Elevator Action's a top 10. Echoes is going to be one that's going to be borderline. So I'm going to have to see where the rest of this list shakes out. Three Houses is a top 5. Gauro has been a top 30 in the past, and it's probably behind CBS 2 and Street Fighter 6 as my favorite. It's like my third favorite fighting game of all time, and it's my favorite SNK game. Ghost Trick is a top 20. Grease is a top 5. Hotel Dusk is a top 10. International Superstar Soccer is my favorite sports game, but I don't know if it's a top 30 game. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. Last Story can be a top 30 game. I think I'm going to leave it for now. Original Zelda has been a top 25 game for me in the past. Zelda used to be a top 5 in terms of Breath of the Wild. It's going to probably still be a top 30 contender, but I don't think it's going to be in the top 10 anymore because of Tears of the Kingdom. Going to probably be up there instead. Mega Man 3 is a top 10 game. Dread has been a top 10 game. I'd argue it's a top 20. Prime, I'm going to have to replay it to have a really strong opinion on it, but I think this is the Metroid game out of the 3 left I'm going to cut. Ninja Saviors is going to be a top 20 game, I think, for me. Ogre Battle 64 is could be a top 30 contender. Perfect Dark could be, possibly. Portal is a top 20, probably. RE4 is going to be a top 10, possibly top 5. Shovel Knight is in the top 30. Silent Hill 3, I love Heather. Heather's the reason why this game's here. I don't think her alone is enough to carry it into the top 30, though. So that goes off the chart. Skies is a top 10. Spiritfarer is a top 20. Splatoon 3 is a top 20. SteamWorld Heist is really good. It's a possibility. Streets of Rage 4 is not a top 30. Street Fighter 6 will be. Alpha 3, I think, is going to be the one that gets cut out of the fighting games. Suikoden 2 is a possible top 30. Super Metroid's a top 5. Mario 64, out of the 2 Mario games that are left, I think I'm going to give the edge to Mario 64 and drop Mario 3. Time Spinner is fantastic. I'm leaving Smash. I don't even need to say it. But it's not top 50 or top 30. Untitled Goose Game is a top 30. XCOM 2 is a top 10. And Xenoblade's probably enough to cut, but let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that'll be number 9. So that means there's one more thing that needs to get cut, and I think it's going to be Echoes. We are now at the top 40. So that means 10 more games have to come off of here. And boy, this is going to be rough. So getting this down to a top 30, I think Rondo's got to go. I think Ogre Battle 64's got to go. I think Perfect Dark's got to go. I think SteamWorld Heist's got to go. Suikoden 2, Mario 64. Go ahead and take Breath of the Wild off. I'm going to take Gauro off. Taking Shovel Knight off. This is tough. This is tough narrowing it down. I'm looking at all these 31 games, and I think the last one I have to clear out is the original Zelda. All right, we are now at a top 30. A top 30 list out of 110. These are the 30 games that I think are the greatest games of all time. Just for curiosity's sake, I will kind of want to rank or sort these a couple different ways. Okay, so I've sorted these by publisher for the top 30. So Metroid and Castlevania are the only one that have 2 representations. Everything else is just down to 1. Nintendo's got 9 games total. Capcom's got 6. Square Enix has 2. Taito has 2. Konami has 2. And then Sega, Valve, EA, Ubisoft, 2K, Devolver, and then Extremely OK Games, Thunder Lotus, and Panic, and House each have 1 at the end. How about actually trying to rank these into what I would want them to be? Because then it would just be as simple as cutting out the bottom 2 rows and we'd have the top 10. I think that's where we're at. I think it's time to actually rank these by my personal preference to get to that top 10. All right. Did a little bit of reformatting to make this look a little bit better. What I think I'll do is I'm going to start with the 10 that I know aren't in the top 20. And then we can eliminate those, and that'll just make this conversation a little bit easier. So the games I'm going to move into this bottom 10. Here are 21 through 30. I'll go ahead and rank them real fast. So what I would probably do is these 4 are probably 21 through 24. I think I would probably put Castlevania here, then Earthbound, then Portal, then Dead Space 2. Then Smash would probably be 25, followed by Goose, and then I think Celeste, CVS 2, Last Story, Street Fighter 6. That sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty good for these. So 21 through 30 in this order. These are the top 20 games, in my opinion, that I've ever played. So now we got to eliminate 10 more. So what do I think are the top 10 and what do I think are the top 20? Spiritfarer probably be number 20. Ninja Saviors would probably be about 19. Ghost Trick would probably be about 18. Dragon Quest 8 would probably be around 17. Splatoon at this point is probably there. I love Splatoon 3 very much, but I don't think it's a top 15 game at this point anymore. Mega Man 3 would probably be 16. No, 15. I'm getting so mixed up. Actually, I think Dread would be 15 and Mega Man 3 would be 14. Bionic Commando would probably be around 13. XCOM 2 is probably right where it should be. And then Dusk would probably be 11. I think that's right. That looks good to me. Down to the top 10. And these are not ranked in any order yet. But that's a good list for me. I feel that this is right. As I look at this is where I sit with these 10 games. This is absolutely 100% where they should be. But now it's time to sort them. So I think out of these, Elevator Action Returns is 10. As much as I love that game, I think it's 10. Skies would be 9. Castlevania would be 8. Tears of the Kingdom would be 6. RE4 would be... Nope, this is 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Boy, this ranking thing is breaking my brain. And then... I think this is where it is. I think this is where it is. Actually, no. I'm making an executive decision. This is my top 10 in this order. And so, now that we've got these, I want to explain why. Why this order? Why these 10 games? So, Super Metroid. I just can't deny the fact that I think after all these years that I've been saying Beyond Good and Evil is my favorite game of all time, that I think it's actually been Super Metroid and I just haven't put it there. Outside of wall jumping being touchy, I have no complaints about Super Metroid. There's nothing beyond finicky wall jumping. Everything else about that game is perfect. From its narrative, from its graphics, to its music, to its ambiance, to its atmosphere, to its bosses, to its enemies, to its level design. The only thing that I have an issue with Super Metroid is wall jumping. Being a bit finicky. And that's it. That's the only thing. So, yeah, I think in all seriousness, Super Metroid has been my number one game. And I've let Beyond Good and Evil sit in number one because I love Jade so much. She is my favorite character. I love so much about Beyond Good and Evil, but I think that because of the fact that that franchise is owned by a publisher that doesn't give a crap about what the integrity of that game should be, I can't keep it at number one. I don't think I can do it anymore. It's going to be in my top 5 forever, I think, but I don't think I can call it my favorite game anymore. Chrono Trigger is the greatest RPG ever made. I think that it does nearly everything right too. It's like in terms of what it is the dream team of RPG developers in Japan at that time. It was Square and Enix heads coming together to create what it's like superlative. There's so little wrong with Chrono Trigger. Like, some side quests can be a little bit hard to parse, and you know, the racing game in the future is a little bit annoying to control sometimes. But on the whole, as a entire experience, Chrono Trigger has to be my number 2. Toriyama's art style's never been better. I think that when I think of Toriyama, it's not Dragon Ball, it's not Dr. Slump, it's not Sandland, it's not Dragon Quest. It's Chrono Trigger. I think his designs are perfect for Chrono Trigger. Best soundtrack in all of games, Chrono Trigger. Best battle system in an RPG, I still think to this day, is Chrono Trigger. It's so simple, but effective. Incredible worlds to explore, so much to do. I'm not bored when I play Chrono Trigger, and it's got some of the best characters in any role-playing game, bar none. It has to be number 2. Beyond Good and Evil, number 3. Beyond Ubisoft being a terrible company that has no integrity and is still littered with sex pests, Beyond Good and Evil overcomes so much of that baggage. Jade is the best character in any video game that I've ever played. She is phenomenal. Carries this game so much with how well defined and how characterized she is. and how emotive she is to all of the chaos swirling around her. One of the best video game stories in any game. Wonderful soundtrack. Looks fantastic. Got such a great art design. The level design is also extremely good. Its biggest issue is outside of its owner is that it's a little short and the mini games aren't as good as the main game. Could have done with another dungeon versus having to race smugglers like 3 times. I love the photo mechanic. I think making Jade a journalist was a brilliant decision. Lovely game. The best thing Ubisoft's ever done, and they will never appreciate it. They will never appreciate how good it is. Grease is number 4. My favorite indie game of all time. The most beautiful video game in terms of visuals ever made. Emotional soundtrack, emotional story, emotional visuals. Beautiful, beautiful game. Incredibly well put together from start to finish. There's very little I can complain about with Grease. It is a game that healed me so much. It really did. My favorite piece of video game paraphernalia I have in this house is my signed watercolor of Grease by the art director, Conrad Rosset. I cannot wait to see what Namada Studio does next with Amoeba. Fire Emblem Three Houses, as I was saying a little bit earlier, successfully combined tactical RPG gameplay with a social management sim that's basically like the best of Fire Emblem and the best of Persona without any of the baggage Persona has in terms of how it understands gender and sexuality. Some of the greatest characters and voice work in any video game is in Three Houses. I love the cast of Three Houses so much. I love being able to interact with so many of those characters. There's a few I don't. I already mentioned Dimitri, which, you know, most of the time I don't have to interact with him a whole lot. But there's a couple of other characters that I am not the biggest fan of. Lindhard, Caspar. I think they're boring. Raphael, I think he's boring. Ingrid, I think she's boring. But there's so many that I love that I just cannot ignore the fact that this is one of the best character-driven video games ever made, and that's not even touching how good the music is, how good the gameplay is from both the social part and the tactical part. Just phenomenal. It is Fire Emblem's brightest moment, and boy, it'd be great if they learned from this game when they make their next one instead of Engage. Because you'll notice Engage wasn't even on the top 110 when we started. Resident Evil 4 and Tears of the Kingdom. My internal debate continues, but I do think where I have these two games right now makes sense. RE4 Remake takes a game that I already loved, which was the original RE4, and manages the impossible of updating everything in that game flawlessly, except for one little thing, which I always bring up when I talk about RE4 Remake, is that sometimes when you're over a downed enemy and you're trying to knife them, the prompt is finicky. Which I've noticed is kind of a general theme with the RE games. I think it's just an engine thing, because RE Village is doing that to me a little bit too, just in a different context. But everything else is phenomenal in RE4 Remake. They got the mood, they got the atmosphere, they improved the characters, they got rid of so much of the sexism and misogyny that was kind of baked into original RE4 regarding Ashley and Ada. They lost a lot of the edgelord factor that RE2 and 3 and Village kind of have. It just feels like the developers loved the original and wanted to share that in this remake, and they did. It takes a game that I already adored and made me fall in love with it all over again. Tears of the Kingdom is sensational. It is the best Zelda game. It takes what Breath of the Wild delivered and amplifies it, supersizes it even, with 2 entirely new realms plus a very reimagined general Hyrule. There's so much to explore, and I love exploration. There's so much to do. And that, I think, is one of its biggest issues, is that it's overwhelming how much to do there is, that it's very easy to lose track of everything. I don't want to hunt every Korok seed. I don't want to hunt down every single signpost. It's like some of the stuff, there's just too much. They could have toned that back just a bit, for me, personally. But I think that the changes from Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom on the whole are better. I still am not 100% convinced that the Ultra Hand mechanic is as good as it could be. I think it's a bit more finicky than I want it to be, and it's a bit more baked into every element of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom than I wish it was. But I grew to like it. I don't love it, but I like it. But like, there's so much that's great about Tears of the Kingdom, but there's also so much there that it's a lot easier for me to nitpick in contrast to the 6 games that are above it, that I think 7th is where it should be, even though Breath of the Wild was in the top 5 for a long time. As I think about where Tears of the Kingdom is, it's better than Breath of the Wild on so many levels, but I think that as I've gotten older, that these 6 games that sit above it deserve to be there. And so, yeah, I guess this is a little bit of a preview of what my decision's going to be about my favorite game of the year. I think I finally am giving it to RE4 Remake. Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. Best feeling game in the entire franchise. Soma Cruz has the best potential in terms of his moveset. He just flows around the castle so eloquently that even though visually and musically and sound effect wise and even scale wise it's a downgrade from Symphony of the Night, the fact that it plays so freaking well overcomes that. It's still got really good visuals for the GBA, really good music for the GBA, but it's all down to the level design being pretty good, because these games have a tendency to copy and paste a lot of their hallways, and this game doesn't do that too badly. And I think mechanically Soma's the most interesting and fun to play as. So out of the Castlevania series, Aria of Sorrow is my favorite by a long shot. Skies of Arcadia Legends is still in my top 10. It was my number 1 game for quite a while when I was younger. And I have issues with some things about it mechanically. Ladders are absolute terror in Skies of Arcadia. The random encounters are way too high. Even in Legends, it's still too high. And there's something, like, I have a 5 ways I'd improve Skies of Arcadia article that I'll go ahead and just link in the description to make this a little bit shorter. But in terms of scope, exploration, and discovery, Skies of Arcadia just hits so many of the right buttons. In terms of characterization, personalities, and getting like the type of values and vibes that I want from main characters, Skies of Arcadia has that in spades. Has a phenomenally good soundtrack. The voice work, considering it's a Dreamcast era game, is pretty decent. It's pretty respectable. The writing is pretty respectable. I don't think that was Sega's strong suit was localization back in the early days, but they did a really good job on this game, in my opinion, and it still holds up. There's still some mild misogynistic stuff in there, but it is not too bad. It's primarily in I forget his name, but the general who Vigoro, that's his name. It's primarily in him. and he's just terrible. But I love Skies. I think the character designs are so good. I think that the world design is so cool. I just love that game. It has to stay in the top 10. And then Elevator Action Returns. That game deserves to be in the top 10. Just arcade perfection. It's fun. The level design is so good. It's got really compelling music by Zuntata. It looks amazing for the time. There's some of the best sprite work I've seen in any video game. Backgrounds are really, really well done. It's just fun. It is a pure fun game that I just think the world of. And I am so happy that it is broke the top 10 finally, because it deserves to be here. All right. That was an exercise, but I hope that you enjoyed me trying to rack my brain about what my top 10 games actually are in the order that they're in, out of 111. Not sure when the next episode will be, but we'll be back in December, I'm sure, with some new things to talk about before we start getting into the game awards that are mine. I hope I don't get sued. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful break, if you get the break for Thanksgiving and all that. And we'll be seeing you in the near future. Take care.